Watch this.
Some lawsuits are intended to stop someone from doing something, and sometimes those intentions are found to be frivolous, which is why several of Idaho's political players want to put a stop to them. What the anti-SLAPP bill sounds like at the State House.
I just thought it was a good idea to not scramble the committee more than necessary midway through the session.
After enough recent scrambling in House Revenue and Taxation to compete with a roadside diner, the newly appointed chair of that committee explains why he won't be changing his policy on public testimony. It's been more than a decade since an inmate was executed in Idaho, but this week, Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate, Thomas Creech, will likely be the next. So how does the state prepare for something like this?
If we can extract lessons from this and improve public policy so bullies who want to use the legal system to silence their foes can't do this, that's a huge win for all of us.
That was last November at the conclusion of one of Idaho politics' favorite, or rather most bothersome, Twitter beef. Twitter beef. Years of social media squabbles between former Idaho Freedom Foundation Vice President Dustin Hurst and political activist Greg Graff ended as kind of a standoff. They each filed a defamation lawsuit against the other. Then the judge determined neither had merit, and both sides accused the other of, well, SLAPP, and it stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. In layman's terms, SLAPP is when you file a nonsense lawsuit to silence and intimidate a political opponent. But a new piece of legislation wants to stop SLAPP by letting the defendant ask the judge to toss a frivolous lawsuit and save everyone time and money. Here's Andrew Barline.
For years in the making, there's been a loophole in Idaho's legal system.
One of only 18 states without any anti-SLAPP protection.
It has an unorthodox cast of characters.
Institute for Free Speech. We have the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance in support, and also the ACLU.
Altogether, tying the knot on loose ends.
Because otherwise people can be bankrupted by these types of lawsuits just for speaking their mind out in the public.
Idaho Senator Brian Lenny pitched anti-SLAPP legislation in committee today.
I think free speech is the heart of any representative republic.
Because he's over wasting time when the ending's inevitable.
Just kind of creates an off-ramp.
A way to escape weak lawsuits before dragging it out in court.
In a time where our courts and judiciary are being increasingly weaponized, and Idahoans are subject to threats of intimidation by lawsuits and things like that.
It costs more than just money.
Lots of stress that you can't possibly imagine.
But still raising the question in committee.
Like, how often are we seeing this? Like, how many cases do you think we're going to see in this realm here in Idaho?
By an exit poll?
Next I have on the list,
two sat ready to testify.
Dustin Hurst, and I'll start there.
I was the target of a SLAPP lawsuit due to my political activities. The case was tossed out because the plaintiff was ruled a public figure and defamation was nearly impossible to prove. And there may be political actors who think that I should face these kind of lawsuits or penalties for things I've said or tweeted. But I'm one of many. Without these protections in place, anyone can face these types of lawsuits and be forced to carry significant financial burdens because of massive legal bills.
As KTVB previously reported, Hurst's case took years. Alongside,
He walked away,
Craig Pruitt.
and there's nothing we could do.
But their actions do have consequences.
Mr. Hurst, you tend to go after candidates or figures who don't believe in the same philosophies that you have.
Agree.
I mean, would this particular bill allow you to do more of that and provide more protection?
But absolutely not. I'm still held to the same standard because this changes nothing policy-wise. It just says if somebody who doesn't like me sues me just because they want me to shut up or stop tweeting, then that lawsuit can be dismissed early in the process rather than late, as mine was this go-round.
Saving time, money, and stress.
This was a massive burden for me and my wife.
Knotting up a loose end.
Good bill should pass. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
The committee took a vote by voice, so it's unclear exactly who voted against that motion. There was 2, maybe 3 lawmakers against that do pass recommendation. It did pass committee. It is going to the Senate floor. Many seem to like the idea, but the exact language of the bill tied them up a little bit. There are lawyers in that committee, Brian.
Yep.
Senator Ruckty kind of looking through the language of it. Again, I don't know how he voted. I think he ended up supporting it, but saying, like, this is hardly English. This is
really?
very thick legal language. And he said it changes things. It's new to him, and New can be scary. So some of the lawyers having questions about it, a lot of lawyers in committee testimony, I should say, did support it.
Okay, well, that's kind of what the criteria for a bill in Idaho. It has to be understandable wording. That's the way it has to be written. That's kind of how this has to work. So I wonder if that's going to run into any sort of problems later on.
It's a piece of legislation. It's a template that's been used in many other states, and it seemed people on both sides of the aisle respected the institution that did write it as well. So that might have helped too.
The template, because Idaho at this point is one of those few states that doesn't have an anti-SLAPP.
One of 18.
Bill. Yep. All right. Thanks, Andrew.
Many of you know that I'm passionate about education and that I care deeply about every single child in Idaho having the opportunity to receive an excellent education.
And that was nearly a month ago when Senator Lori Den Hartog introduced what would become House Bill 447, the Idaho Parental Choice Tax Credit Bill. The title is self-explanatory. Its intent is to let parents and legal guardians choose the educational services that meet the needs of their individual children. And it would subsidize that choice by allowing parents to claim a tax credit up to $5,000 per student or $7,500 for kids with special needs. So any money spent on such education, from textbooks to tutoring to transportation to tuition for private schools, they can get back when they file their taxes. And it would be eligible on a first file, first credited basis, capping the amount available at $40 million. But there's also a grant portion of the bill for lower income families who can't pay it right away, but then hoping to get paid back on the back end. Well, that part of the program is capped at $10 million, so $50 million total. So House Bill 447 has been in the House Revenue and Taxation Committee for almost 4 weeks. And there's been no movement on it, at least publicly. But there certainly has been some movement in that committee and some rules that haven't changed, which could impact the bill's progression. The story of what is happening this year with the House Revenue and Taxation Committee.
So the substitute motion to hold 139 in committee has passed.
Can be traced back to what happened last year in the House Education Committee. Last March, 2 harmful materials in the library bills,
All in favor of adjournment say aye.
Failed to advance on the same day.
So we are adjourned.
Which led to Representative Judy Boyle.
It is our duty to do that. And as a mom and a grandma, I am ashamed if we cannot.
To resign from the Education Committee that afternoon.
And it's not because I was on the losing end of that. It's because I honestly think we should protect children.
Jump ahead to 2024. And 5 weeks into the session, House Majority Leader Megan Blanksma is removed from her leadership position for questioning how budget bills are being handled.
I'm frustrated, to be honest. I am frustrated in that I feel like I've done a good job.
Blanksma would be replaced the following week by Representative Jason Monks.
The hour of 9 o'clock having arrived.
Who would gavel his last Revenue and Taxation Committee on February 14th.
So we will be adjourned until tomorrow at 9:30.
That day, his seat as chair,
welcome everybody,
was filled by Representative David Cannon from Blackfoot.
My humility and my gratitude for being in this position.
But there was another change to the Revenue and Taxation Committee.
I want to take another privilege and extend a warm welcome to our newest member. Representative Boyle has joined us.
With the addition of Representative Boyle.
Was there any explanation as to why she was added to this committee?
None that I was given, no.
None, okay.
It is somewhat unusual, along with, I think, everything that has happened in terms of the change in leadership. This session has been somewhat unusual.
What some might also see as odd, the number 17. That's how many now sit on the Revenue and Taxation Committee, where a school choice tax credit bill is likely headed. And the possible tie-breaking vote could come from newly added Representative Boyle, a known proponent of school choice.
Yeah, I have nothing, I don't have any information. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if that's a plan. I would just be speculating if I weighed in on that.
Do you expect 447 to come up soon? I mean, that's up to you, right?
It is up to me. I mean, I'm talking to people, including the sponsors as well. I expect that it'll come up soon, yes.
Why haven't we seen it already?
Just a timing issue and just people having discussions with, the sponsors and the stakeholders.
Is there anything to the point of maybe not having enough support yet?
I don't want to weigh in on that. Again, that would be speculation on my part. It hasn't come up in the context of, hey, let's schedule this at a time when we have enough support to get it through or anything like that.
So when it does come up, when you make that decision, there's been a lot of talk lately about who's allowed to testify.
Yes, sir.
Is it true that remote testimony will not be allowed?
It is true that remote testimony will not be allowed. I wanted there to be continuity in terms of, how things had been run previous. This is a committee that hasn't had, in the last couple of years, remote testimony. And so without regard to 447 or any other individual piece of legislation, I just made a decision that we would finish the session the way we started it.
So has there been any push for you to change your mind on this?
There has been, yes.
And
I am not planning to change my mind.
Chair Cannon says emails and conversations are also a way constituents can be heard on a bill.
We are engaged with our constituents on this even as we speak. I've had meetings in person, on the phone, over video conference with lots of people from my district about 447.
So what have you been hearing from your constituents?
Strictly by the numbers, I feel like probably that the folks in District 30 have weighed in more heavily in favor of 447 and the school choice that it would represent. I feel like those against it might have a little higher level of intensity on it.
We did reach out to Speaker of the House, Representative Mike Moyle, who is the one who decides who sits on what committee, because we wanted to ask him about this replacement, or this placement, I should say. We are waiting to hear if he is available this week. Chair Cannon says he believes in most cases, most members of the Revenue and Taxation Committee go into a hearing already knowing how they're going to vote on a bill based on their conversations and the emails and the work they've done on the ground leading up to this hearing. So it's been a month, and the wheels have been turning around the scene, or behind the scenes, on House Bill 447. Conversations are being held with the bill sponsors, as you heard. So when I asked if it will be the same bill presented as the day it was printed, Chair Cannon, well, he couldn't say. It could be different. Still no word, though, when House Bill 447 will get a full hearing in the committee. Well, 2 days after losing the GOP presidential primary election in her home state of South Carolina, Nikki Haley is courting potential voters in Michigan today. Some are questioning the future of Haley's campaign after her loss to former President Trump, wondering why she's staying in despite the drumming. If she were to drop out, by the way, that would leave just former President Donald Trump and Ryan Binkley as the only viable candidates for Idaho's Republican presidential caucus coming up this weekend. But the former governor of the Palmetto State is persistent, and tomorrow Haley will be in Denver, and we've been offered an opportunity to speak with her. Colorado, by the way, is a Super Tuesday state, so Haley is stopping by Michigan, she's stopping by Colorado, but no mention of Idaho. Weird. We're going to ask her about it, and we have some things we'd like to ask, but we'd also want to know what you want to know. So see that number on your screen? Text us any questions you might have for presidential candidate Nikki Haley. All right, did you feel it? A bit of a shudder this morning with an earthquake hitting Valley County. Not the only moves making news today, as the largest supermarket merger in the U.S. history may be in jeopardy. In today's 411, Brenda Rodriguez has details on the efforts to block the deal between Kroger and Albertsons and everything else that's shaken in the 208.
Did you feel it? An earthquake rattled southern Idaho just before 10:30 this morning. The USGS says the 4.9 magnitude quake was centered about 7 miles north of Smithberry in Valley County. There have been several smaller aftershocks in the same area. ITD says that its crews are checking all roads, bridges, and culverts in the area to make sure that there's no safety issues. The quake caused some shaking at the Valley County Commissioners meeting this morning. And check out this video from Susan Koppel in Garden Valley. And this video from Mandy Harmon at St. Luke's in McCall. You can see those medical instruments swinging in the aftermath. And the Federal Trade Commission is suing the bloc the proposed merger between Kroger and the Boise-based Albertsons. The two companies agreed to the merger in October of 2022. The FTC filed a lawsuit today in the U.S. District Court in Oregon. The FTC says that the $26.4 billion deal would eliminate competition and lead to higher prices. The company says that the merger will help them compete with companies like Amazon, Costco, and Walmart. They had hoped to close the deal earlier this year. And here's a warning for you. For dog owners in the Boise area, February and March is coyote breeding season, and Idaho Fish and Game says that could mean an increase in conflicts between coyotes and dogs. Fish and Game says that coyotes can become more aggressive and territorial during breeding season, especially towards other canine species. Pet owners are urged to keep dogs on leash on all Boise foothill trails. And an update for anyone who uses the Boise Greenbelt. Boise Parks and Rec says that they are starting a bank stabilization project near Wiley Lane and the Willow Lane Athletic Complex. The Greenbelt path near the project is closed starting today and will reopen sometime in April. There's going to be detour signs for people to follow in the meantime. And that's your 411 on the 208. I'm Brenda Rodriguez.
For the first time in more than a decade, Idaho is set to execute a man on death row. It's a morbid undertaking that does take some preparation. This is the time of the 208 when we ask you for your take on what we've talked about or what you think we should talk about. Comments, concerns, questions for presidential candidates, or just us. Grab your phone and send us a text message, 208-321-5614. As always, be sure to include your name and the hashtag the 208. That way, we know it's meant for us. Oh, and we may share your thoughts at the end of the show, so stick around. Idaho's longest-serving death row inmate has been behind bars for nearly 50 years. Thomas Creech was sentenced to death for killing a fellow inmate inside a state prison back in 1981. He was also convicted of 4 other murders from several decades ago. And on Wednesday, Creech is set to face his execution. It'll be the first the state of Idaho has done this, in a dozen years. So we're kind of under this 3-day period until this is supposed to happen. So Jude Binkley is here to kind of tell us, well, I guess the question is, how does the state prepare for something like this?
Well, Brian, first, Creech was issued a death warrant on January 30th. And since then, the Idaho Department of Corrections has been preparing to carry out his execution on Wednesday. IDOC policies outline how the execution will be done. The process is carried out by 3 teams, the escort, medical, and administrative teams. The escort team will take Creech to the execution room and secure him to the table. Once that happens, the medical team will hook Creech up to an EKG to monitor his heart. 2 IVs will be inserted, and one of those is a backup. A summary of Creech's death warrant will be read. Creech will be able to give a final statement and will be offered an eye covering. IDOC's director will then give the order to start the execution. Creech will be given a series of chemicals from syringes that will be marked, color-coded, and given in a specific order. Now, the process varies slightly on which chemical is being used, but IDOC hasn't said what chemical they're using to kill Creech. The warden and medical team will monitor the process for any possible issues. After all the chemicals have been administered and Creech's heart stops on the EKG, the Ada County Coroner's Office will be called into the execution room to pronounce Creech dead. Now, Creech's execution is scheduled for Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. And Brian, this is the 11th time Creech has been scheduled to be executed.
And there'll be several witnesses there on hand to watch this happen, right?
A number, yes. There's a witness room with the state's running with like media and some law enforcement as well. And then there's a witness room for Creech's family as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jude.
Well, it's snowing in Star, Idaho.
That's a good caption. The snow returns. Well, here's something else to show you too. Here's the current temperature. Okay, so take a look at this. 38 degrees for Boise, 36 in Nampa. It's now 31 degrees for Twin Falls. Now, this is normally when the high temperature would occur, but the high temperature was somewhere around 1 o'clock this morning, which was just over 50 degrees. In fact, at 8 o'clock this morning, it was 50 degrees. And then when the frontal system moved through about midday, the rain changed into snow. That's when we saw some of these temperatures really start to drop, as you can see there. Now, amounts of rain, 0.20 of an inch for Boise. Over here in Twin Falls, it was less. Gooding had just about 1/4 of an inch of rain. Quite a bit of rain as well as snow, starting out with the rain, but then changing to snow in the mountain locations. High temperatures today, so there's that 52. And most of these temperatures were very early this morning. It was kind of piggybacking off of some of those nice warm temperatures that we had for the weekend, and then it dropped for today. So where are we now? Well, this is where it's at. Here's Monday at about 5:30. You can see Boise. Storm system is now down here to our south. Well-defined front just right behind it here, so it's moving southward. Still some more snow for Twin Falls, but nothing out here for most of the Southwest Valley. Stanley could still have a few scattered snow showers as well. When we move this, put it into motion through 1:30 tomorrow morning, it's not that the snow showers are over. We'll see it off and on, but you kind of get this idea here. The fact that they're going to be very spotty around the area, okay? So that's all we're going to be looking at, even as we get through Wednesday. Finally, another storm system comes in that has another effect in some of the mountain locations. And of course, we'll have more about that in the storm and what it's going to be doing here. So your forecast in the next 7 days. So for tomorrow, look for some breezy conditions. Temperatures are still down about 42 degrees. From that point, after tomorrow, they gradually start coming up. There's Wednesday. Thursday, once again, this is not too bad. At this point, we have some showers still around the area, though. And then as we get into Friday, there's a mixture of rain or snow as the temperature drops at night. Same thing for Saturday morning, where the temperature is down to 34 degrees. As you look at Sunday and Monday, most lows are down into the upper 20s, right around 30 degrees, and most of your daytime highs are back into the 40s. We'll have a little sunshine in and out for this week, but it's looking better as we get to next Sunday and Monday.
All right, it is Monday. Let's wrap up the show with some comments that you sent in during today's show, like this one from Scott, who says, I'm sure the attorneys are not going to be happy if the anti-SLAPP bill passes. Sure, it means fewer clients at some point, I would guess. If our legislators have decided how to vote to introduce a bill in committee, public input and opinions in a public hearing means absolutely nothing, says Steve. What's new? It's been the Idaho way for years. Well, we did find out from Representative Brent Crane, who chairs the State Affairs Committee, he doesn't read the bills before they come into his committee because he wants to go in there with a fresh mind, he says, and kind of take it all in. So I guess however you run your committee is up to the chair and how they decide to do it. That's kind of what we're seeing across the board. Parents have always had the choice of where to send their kids to school. Why do I have to pay for that private charter school? I didn't choose to put my kids there, so my taxes pay for public school and then reimburse someone else for special school? Not right, says Beckett in Twin Falls. Interesting that Idaho legislators say that in their district people favor money for private schools, but statewide polls show majority of Idahoans oppose private funding. Who is telling the truth? Asked Kelly. It's a good question, but I guess that depends on where you live. You can get different opinions depending on where you are in the state. This one from Allison. Twitter beef for life. Hope you caught the Simpsons reference. Twitter beef. We'll see you tomorrow.